My name is Kevin Brennan. I'm 41 years old, and I'm a long haul trucker out of Des Moines, Iowa. 12 years behind the wheel. Mostly Midwest routes: Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, sometimes Missouri. People think it's a boring job. Maybe it is. But I love the road. I love that moment when the city falls away behind you and there's nothing ahead but asphalt and sky. Radio, a thermos of coffee, my own thoughts. For me, it's basically meditation. My wife says I love the road more than I love her. She's joking. At least, I think she is. In 12 years, I've covered these states up, down, and sideways. I know which truck stops are decent and which ones aren't. I know where to get the best coffee at 4 in the morning. I know which roads to avoid during the rainy season and where the worst stretches are in winter. I know this land like the back of my own hand. But there's one road I always avoid now, in any weather, any season, even if it adds an hour to the trip. Route 56 through Kansas, between Dodge City and Wichita. That night started out normal. I was hauling construction materials out of Omaha: cement, rebar, sheet metal, heavy load, standard run. Left at 7 p.m., planned to be in Wichita by 6 in the morning. The route through 56 cuts, 40 minutes off the trip compared to the detour. I'd driven it dozens of times. I made my first stop around 1 in the morning. Small town, one main street, a church, a grocery store, a gas station. There are hundreds like it in Kansas. They all look the same, like someone copy-pasted one little town and scattered it across the plains. One every 50 miles. The gas station was open. A single light over the entrance buzzed and flickered in the wind. Behind the glass, a cashier. An old man, maybe 70. Bald, wearing a blue work jacket. He was reading a magazine and didn't look up until I set my cash down on the counter. I grabbed a coffee, large, black, and a hot dog off the rotating warmer. Rubbery, obviously been sitting there since lunch, but I hadn't eaten since 5 p.m., and my stomach had stopped being picky a long time ago. The cashier counted out my change without a word. I was already heading for the door when he said, without lifting his eyes, "Don't take 56 tonight." I stopped. "Why not?" He finally looked up from the magazine. He looked at me, not scared, not cryptic, just the way you'd look at someone asking about something obvious. "Just don't," he repeated, and went back to reading. I stood there for a second. I wanted to ask again, but something in his tone stopped me. It wasn't fear and it wasn't a warning. It was just a fact. The same way someone might say it's going to rain tonight, or the bridge is out for repairs. I walked out, got in the cab, finished half my coffee while the engine warmed up. 56 was my usual route. 40 minutes saved. I was supposed to drop the load that morning and make it home in time for lunch. My wife had some kind of family thing planned with her parents. I took 56. The first 20 miles, nothing. Darkness, flat land, every now and then the silhouette of a grain elevator on the horizon. The radio was barely catching anything, some old country station fading in and out of static. I switched over to a podcast and finished my coffee. The hot dog turned out worse than I expected, but I ate it anyway. Then I saw the first car, parked on the shoulder, an old blue pickup, looked like a Ford, maybe from the 80s, headlights off. I drove past and automatically glanced in my rear view. No hazard lights. Nobody got out. It just sat there in the dark. Nothing unusual. People pull over. Maybe someone dozed off and decided to wait it out. Maybe it broke down and that already called for help. I'd driven past hundreds like it. 5 miles later, another car. Also old, also on the shoulder, also dark. A dark red sedan. I couldn't make out the make. I eased off the gas a little. Over the next 10 miles, I counted 5 more cars, all old, nothing newer than the 90s. All parked on the shoulder, all with their lights off. Different models, pickups, sedans, one old station wagon with wood paneling on the sides, the kind nobody's made in 30 years. 7 cars in 20 miles on an empty road at night. I turned off the podcast. The 8th car was sitting in the middle of the road. I saw it late. It was dark, no lights, and I was going pretty fast. I slammed the brakes. The truck rocked. The cargo rattled. I came to a stop about 20 meters short of it. I sat there for a minute, just watching. Nothing moved. I got out of the cab. It was quiet. Even the crickets weren't singing. And in Kansas, in summer, they're always singing. There was wind. I could hear it humming through the power lines overhead. But nothing else. I walked up to the car, also an old pickup. Dark green, a Chevy, I'd guess late 70s. The driver's side door was open. I shined my flashlight inside. There was a cup of coffee sitting in the cup holder between the seats. I reached in and touched it. Warm. I pulled my hand back, looked around. Fields on both sides, dark, flat. No light, no silhouette, no sound of movement. Someone had just gotten out of this car. Maybe a minute ago, maybe less. I went back to my truck, fast but trying not to run. Got in the cab and shut the door. Hit the lock. Though in a truck cab, locking the door is really just psychology. I called dispatch. Told them. Roads blocked. Abandoned cars all around, can't get through. She said she'd contact Kansas Highway Patrol and told me to sit tight. So I waited. 20 minutes, 30. I kept checking every mirror, one at a time. Nothing moving anywhere. No headlights on the horizon, not ahead, not behind. Like the road only existed between me and the dark. At 2:14, I got out again. The road was empty. The green pickup, gone. I walked over to where it had been parked. Asphalt, nothing. I walked over to the shoulder where I'd seen the first car. Nothing. I walked as far as my flashlight would let me. Not a single car. Not on the road. Not on the shoulder. 7 cars. Gone while I sat in my cab. I stood in the middle of that empty road trying to come up with an explanation. Maybe I'd mixed up the location. Maybe they'd pulled out while I was on the phone and just drove off. Maybe it was some kind of vintage car rally and they'd just stopped to take a break. The coffee cup had been warm. I went back to my truck and drove on. Didn't turn the radio back on. Just drove and watched the road. I got into Wichita at 5 in the morning. Dropped a load. Sat in the cab and couldn't make myself pull back onto the road for another hour. On the way back, I stopped at the same gas station. Same cashier. Same magazine. Same blue jacket. I walked up to the counter. I took 56, I said. He looked up. I can see you made it, he said calmly. What were those cars? He set the magazine down. First time I'd seen him do that, either visit. Happens every few years, he said. On that stretch, between Dodge City and Pratt. Nobody knows why. The cars show up at night. Old ones, always old. I've never heard of one newer than 1990. Police show up, nothing's there. People who stop. Most of them make it through. Most? I repeated. He picked the magazine back up. Thanks for stopping in, he said. I wanted to ask more, but I looked at him and I understood. He wasn't going to say anything else. Not because he didn't want to, because there was nothing left to say. I still drive that route, yeah, but always the detour now, an extra hour, small price to pay, and always during the day. But sometimes at night, when I'm lying there, unable to sleep, I think about that warm cup of coffee, sitting in an abandoned car in the middle of an empty road, and about what that cashier said. Most of them make it through. Most. My name is Adam Fletcher. I'm 41 years old, and I don't know how to tell you what happened, because I still don't know what actually happened. Maybe it was shock. Maybe fear made me lose my mind. The doctor says one thing, I think another. But facts are facts. So I'm just going to tell you what I saw. August of last year. My wife Sarah, our son Cody, he was 9, and I rented a cabin up in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. A week away, nature, far from the city. The cabin was wooden, small, with a porch that looked out over the mountains. The owner lived in the next town over, key under the doormat. The first 2 days were perfect. Cody found an old fishing rod and demanded I teach him how to fish. I promised. Saturday we'd head to the lake. The owner's instructions described the route, Trail 7, 20 minutes on foot through the woods. Saturday morning, Sarah stayed back at the cabin, wanted to read and relax. Cody and I headed out. It was a beautiful day. Sunny, not too hot, birds singing. Cody carried the fishing rod like a spear and talked my ear off about some video game. I listened and thought there was nothing better than that exact moment. About 15 minutes in, I saw him. A man was walking toward us on the trail. In the August heat, a long dark coat, hood up. He was walking very slowly, looking down at his feet. I slowed my pace. He lifted his head as we got closer. His face was pale. His eyes looked strange, like he was looking straight through me, like I was transparent. He stopped. I put my hand on Cody's shoulder. Pure instinct. The man looked at Cody. For a long time, way longer than anyone normally looks at someone else's kid. Then he raised his eyes to me. "Turn back," he said quietly. His voice was flat, no emotion in it at all. "Right now, don't go any farther." "Why?" I asked. He didn't answer, just stared. "What's by the lake?" "Turn back," he repeated, and kept walking, past us. That same slow gait. I watched him go, and at some point I realized I hadn't heard his footsteps. Not once. He was walking over dry leaves and branches, and there wasn't a single sound. We went back to the cabin. Sarah didn't take it seriously, said, "Local weirdo." That evening she asked if we wanted to head to the lake the next day. I said no. I barely slept that night. In the morning, Cody came out to the porch and said he and his mom were going to the lake while I was still sleeping. I went inside. Sarah was putting on her sneakers. Sarah. "No. Adam, it's just a trail. I'm asking you not to go." She looked at me, took Cody's hand and walked out. I stood on the porch and watched them head down the trail. Cody turned around and waved at me. 20 minutes later, I couldn't take it anymore and went after them. I found them by the lake. They were sitting on the shore, Sarah and Cody, alive, unharmed. Sarah was holding a book, the same one she'd been reading at home. Cody had the fishing rod, staring out at the water. I let out a breath and walked over. "Sarah," she looked up, smiled. "Adam, you came after all." I sat down next to her, put my hand on her shoulder and stopped. Her shoulder was cold. Not just cool, cold like stone. In the August heat, after a 20-minute walk through the woods. "Are you cold?" I asked. "No," she said and went back to her book. "It's really nice out here." I looked at Cody. He was sitting completely still, staring at the water, not fidgeting, and Cody never sat still. Never. He was always yanking at the rod, throwing rocks, asking a million questions. "Cody," I said, "how's the fishing?" He didn't answer right away. 3 seconds, maybe, just staring at the water. Then he turned to me. "Fine, Dad. Fine." Cody never said fine. He said awesome, or nothing yet, or I almost caught this huge one, but never fine. I looked at them both and tried to calm myself down. It's shock. I just got scared, and now I'm seeing everything wrong. They're alive. Everything's okay. "Should we head back?" I asked. "A little longer," Sarah said without looking up from her book. I glanced at the cover of her book and froze. At home, she'd been reading a mystery novel. Blue cover, I'd seen it on the table. But now she was holding a book with a red cover. I couldn't see the title, but it was a different book. She hadn't grabbed another book. I'd watched her leave the cabin. Her hands had been empty. Just Cody with the fishing rod. "Sarah," I said slowly, "where'd that book come from?" She looked up, glanced at the book, then at me. "What book?" she asked calmly. "The one you're holding." She looked down at what was in her hands again and smiled, but the smile was slightly off, a little delayed, like she'd calculated that smiling was the right move, and then smiled. "You're tired, Adam," she said. "Let's head home." She stood up. Cody stood up next to her. Also without a word, just got up and walked alongside her. I followed behind, watching their backs. Sarah wasn't walking right. I know how my wife walks. 14 years of marriage. She's got a light step, a slight sway to it. This woman was walking perfectly straight, like she was trying to place her feet correctly, but something in the rhythm was off. I stopped in the middle of the trail. "Sarah," she turned around. "Where were you this morning before you left the cabin?" A pause. Brief, but I caught it. "At home. Getting ready with Cody." "Were you reading?" "Yes." "Which book?" Another pause. "Adam, what's wrong with you?" "Which book were you reading this morning?" She looked at me for a long time, and in her eyes, I can't quite describe it, just something off, like she was processing the question longer than she should have needed to. "The mystery novel," she finally said. "Blue cover. You saw it yourself." The right answer, the logical answer. So why did that make me feel even worse? We went back to the cabin. Sarah made dinner. Everything as usual, no mistakes. Cody watched cartoons and laughed. Everything normal. Everything correct. But when I hugged Cody before bed, he didn't lean into it. He just stood there. Cody always leaned in, buried his head in my shoulder, and wouldn't let go until I told him that was enough. This time, he just stood there and waited for me to let go. "Night, Dad," he said. "Night," I said. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there listening to Sarah breathing next to me. Her breathing was even, very even, too even. In the morning, I called the cabin's owner. "That trail to the lake," I said. "Trail 7. Does anything happen to people out there?" Silence. "Why are you asking?" he finally said. "No real reason. We walked it yesterday. Ran into some man in a dark coat. He told us to turn back." Another silence, longer this time. "Did you turn back?" he asked it. "I did." But my wife and son kept going. And are they right now? He stopped himself. Did they come back? Yeah, they're here. Everything's fine. He didn't say anything, just silence on the line. What's out there by the lake? I asked. Are you leaving today? He asked instead of answering. We had 3 more days planned. Leave today? He said quietly. Right now, don't stay there. But leave and don't ask me about that place again. He hung up. I went out onto the porch. Sarah and Cody were sitting at the table, eating breakfast, laughing about something. I watched them. My wife, my son. They looked the same as always, sounded the same as always, laughed the same as always. But when Cody looked over at me and smiled, I felt something go cold inside me, because there was nothing in his eyes, just eyes. None of that warm light that had always been there. None of that spark I'd known since the day he was born. Dad, breakfast, he said. Coming, I said. I went inside the cabin, grabbed my phone, looked through my contacts, and realized I had no idea who I'd even call. What would I say? That my family came back from the lake and something about them isn't right? That my son's eyes are empty? That my wife isn't walking the way she used to? We left that same day. I told them I had to get back to work early. Sarah and Cody agreed without a single question, packed their things without a single complaint. Cody didn't even ask to stay longer, and he always asked to stay longer. We've been home for 3 weeks now. Everything's normal. Everything's right. Sarah cooks, laughs, asks about my day. Cody goes to school, does his homework, watches cartoons. But sometimes at night, I lie there and listen to her breathing. Too even. And I think about the cabin owner who told me to leave right now, and about the man on the trail who told me to turn back. I turned back. But did they?